You're listening to The Brendon Marotta Show.
So I became really interested in AI in August of last year, August 2022, after about 15 minutes of playing with Midjourney AI, an AI image generator. For those of you who don't know, AI image generators are AIs that you can input a text prompt into and it will create any image you want. So you type picture of whatever you want a picture of and it makes that picture. And after about 15 minutes of playing with Midjourney AI, I just knew this is the future. The social media entrepreneur Gary Vaynerchuk has talked about how when he first got on the internet back in, I think, the early 90s, after about 15 minutes online, he sold someone something and just thought, this is the future. This is going to change everything in society. And I had the same response to playing with Midjourney AI and making images. I thought, this is just going to be how art is done in the future. This is going to transform everything about the world that I work in. In a few years, people will be creating entire movies with this technology. It's going to completely transform everything about how people communicate in social media. And I need to learn everything about this because every job that every person has is over and it's all going to be completely transformed by AI. After I discovered AI, I began posting about the subject constantly and saying, like, this is going to change everything. And I don't think people initially understood why I was doing that or why I became so interested in this until ChatGPT became a thing. So once people saw ChatGPT and saw the same technology applied to text and not just images, I think people started to realize, oh, this is a big deal. And this is something that everyone should be paying attention to. And in fact, there's a lot of people I know who work very traditional jobs, very traditional office work, who have told me privately, oh yeah, I use AI technology in everything I do now. It's just part of the workflow. And it's happened that fast. And AI advances are happening over the course of weeks, not years, which is what we've seen with previous technologies. Every now and then I get overwhelmed by the amount that I want to learn, and I'll think, oh man, there's that new tool that came out I haven't done anything with yet. And I'll look and it came out 2 weeks ago. So of course, with all the things in my life going on, including a family and a child, like I just haven't gotten to it yet. And with all that said, I do have some predictions, or actually not even a prediction as much as a thesis. Because very often when people predict things, they do so from a disinterested state of, oh, well, this is what I think the world is going to do, or this thing will happen in politics. And I am making a bet. I don't just want to predict something and then be able to say, oh, see, I told you so. That would be less interesting and less profitable than actually going all in on AI. So with that said, my prediction is that there's going to be this very small window of maybe 2 to 3 years, tops, where making things with AI is cool and new. And then after that, it's just going to be how everything is done. And I'm predicting this based on what I saw with CG technology in the 90s when I was growing up. Most of you don't remember, but there was this really small window where making things with CG was a cool, new, innovative thing to do in filmmaking. And I remember when the Lord of the Rings films came out, the original Peter Jackson Lord of the Rings films, the character of Gollum was a new idea and new innovation. People were so impressed. Oh my goodness, they made this entire character with CG. That's so exciting and revolutionary. And wow, it looks so good. And now everything in movies is made with CG. Every single character, it's all CG. And in fact, the cool thing to do, the selling point that filmmakers will tell audiences is, oh, we did all practical effects, or we did it all with puppeteering or live action in some way. Because so much of the film industry and what you see on screen now is made with CG, that it's no longer a novelty. It's just how things were done. And the default assumption of audiences when they see something stunning and miraculous that could never have been done in any previous film is, they probably just made it with CG. And I think AI is going to be the same way. There's going to be this really short period where making something with AI is cool and new and no one has ever done it before. And then it's just going to be what you do to make a film. And it's going to be really common for people to type into a video generator that they want a dynamic shot of an alien invasion shot on this lens with this style of color correction, and it's just going to spit that out. So one of the things I'm trying to do is teach myself everything about these tools now before they become the norm. Because I do think they're going to be an incredible equalizer in the sense that one of the things I've always struggled with is that I often dream bigger than my budget. So I love science fiction and fantasy. I love really fantastical stories. And yet at the same time, those stories often require more resources than, say, a small indie film or a film about a few characters going about their daily life. And yet, with the AI technology that's coming out now, you might be able to put a fantastical character into your story very easily. You might be able to do an entire animated film. You might be able to do crazy effect shots just by typing. And that means that stories that might previously not have been able to be told on that scale at that level of budget, someone can now make in their bedroom on their home computer. And that's going to lead to all sorts of interesting things. For those of you who don't know about the economics of the film industry, part of the reason that so many films seem to kind of tell the same stories or feel the same or be based on previously existing intellectual property like adaptations, comic books, sequels, is because the amount of money needed to make a large tentpole film is such that the studio has to make something that appeals to everyone, and it has to make something that can be understood by foreign audiences who might not understand the nuances of English. So something that is very colorful, that's very explosive, that has a pre-existing audience, that tells the story primarily visually, that tells simple stories, that isn't too complex, that won't necessarily appeal to a niche audience. Those are the things that get made. And again, the economics are such that if you want to advertise a film to make the money back, you have to spend, $100 million just on the marketing to make your money back on a film that's got a very high budget. And mid-budget films have sort of gone away. But what's also happened is that low-budget films can now tell fantastical stories because a lot of the effects work that would have previously been necessary for them can be done on a smaller budget. I think AI is going to do the same thing where all of a sudden things that previously could not have been shared with a mass audience will be able to be. So if you have a really, what would have been considered high budget, fantastical story, but it's kind of weird and it really would only appeal to a certain group of people, now you can make that. And I also think it's going to do really interesting things for actors because previously actors had to be cast in a role that fit their type. In other words, every actor has a particular look that might be cast as a particular type of character, but now every actor is a motion capture artist as well, and they can play any character. You could cast one actor and have them play all the characters and just use AI to use their motion capture to make them look like someone different each time. You can have actors whose features might previously not have made them ideal for one role playing that role because with AI, you can look like anyone you want to. And I think that's going to really open up opportunities for people who have incredible acting talent, but maybe would not have been thought of as a movie star before. Because now everyone's a character actor. And if you want to look like a movie star, well, just type into your AI image generator movie star or classically good looking type of person or whatever it is you want to put in. And you can have people playing all sorts of different roles that they wouldn't have before. And I think acting is going to be one of the most technologically resilient parts of the film industry because it's one of the few parts that you can't automate the same way. In other words, a lot of the film industry jobs are because it takes a lot of equipment to make a movie. So if you have a really big shot, you need a lot of people to set up the set design of that shot. You need a lot of people to move around the lights. The lights for a film are often very expensive and large, and it takes a team of people just to move things out of the grip truck and set them up the way that you need to. And now, if you can do all of that in post-production, essentially, the one piece I don't know that you can automate is performance. In other words, you might still need a human being to hit exactly the right inflection of a line or to provide the style of a particular character, the way that they talk or the motion that they have. And so there's going to be elements of the performance that a human being, I think, will still be better at. In other words, the one thing that human beings can do that I think that they might always be able to do better than AI is to pretend to be human beings. Maybe that'll be wrong. Maybe it'll be such that AI becomes a very good actor. But I know enough of the internal process of acting to know that the artistic choices that an actor makes, a good actor at least, are often very counterintuitive. And so if you want a rote performance, if you want a deep fake, essentially, an AI might still be able to do that better. But if you want that deep fake to do something unexpected, you might need a human to model it for the AI. So a lot of interesting stuff is coming with AI and the creation of art, and I'm trying to get on top of it faster than it's happening, which is it's almost like there's a wave breaking in the world, and I'm trying to pick up enough speed to surf it. And I felt this way when I was making my first film, that there was sort of a wave breaking in human consciousness and the culture around the issue of that film, and that I needed to work very quickly to get the film out in time. And I think there's going to be something similar technologically, where there's going to be this really brief window where making a film with AI is cool and it's new and no one's ever done it before. And then it's just going to be how everything's done. So learning all of these tools is really challenging. I saw one Twitter thread about how 1,000 AI tools had come out in 1 week, and no human being can learn that much. And so I'm shifting my focus from learning all the AI tools, which is a fool's errand, to trying to learn the things that will be useful for what I do. And I'm also trying to do the things that AI can't do, but that I will be well positioned if AI reaches a certain point in the future. In other words, this might happen so fast that it won't be something you can plan ahead for. So it might be that in 1 week, a new AI tool comes out that makes it so you can make a film in AI. And if your script isn't ready, then you'll miss it. In other words, you can't plan the entire post-production process ahead of time. With a typical film, you have a script, and then you make your decisions in pre-production as to how you're going to make that film. And the tools by which you're going to make that film are sort of predetermined. Most people know at this point what the post-production process and the production process for an effects-heavy movie is. Whereas with this, you might start making the film, and by the time you're reaching post-production, there are tools that are new that didn't exist when you started making the film. So I think you're just going to have to improvise a lot with all of this. Now, I've already made one artistic creation with AI, and that is the book that I put out called The Gods of AI, which I have right here for those of you who are watching on the video version. And in 2 months, I had a 400-page art book. This is all 2 months. So I made The Gods of AI over the course of 2 months, September 2022 to November 2022. It came out just last year. And this will tell you how fast the technology is going. I used Midjourney 3 to make the book, and we are already on Midjourney 5.1 at the point I'm recording this. I say that because Midjourney might come out with version 6 by the time this video is out. That is how fast the technology is advancing. But I still think the book is timeless because of what it deals with. The Gods of AI is a 400-page art book that explores human consciousness and spirituality using AI-generated images. So my thesis for the book was that these AI image generators are trained on more images than any human being could possibly absorb over the course of their life. You could sit and look at art all day, every day for the rest of your life and still not see as many images as an AI image generator sees. So when you ask an AI image generator to draw something for you, it is not just drawing on the life experience of a particular human, but the collective visual history of all of human consciousness. In other words, every image that human beings have made exists in the training data of this AI image generator. And so one of the things that I did when I was first experimenting with Midjourney AI is I would put really abstract terms in. I was almost trying to break it and see like, what would it do if I put in just the word faith or God of language? How do you draw the God of language? And sure enough, it would bring something back that was really weird and unique. So God of language has these images of an open book and this almost wise old ghost rising out of the book. I thought that's really interesting. That's a visual representation of a spiritual concept based on the collective visual history of every image in this AI's training data. And this is very different than the way most people prompt AI image generators. So most of the time people have an idea in their head and they want the AI to create that idea. So you would put a very specific image in. You'd say, I want a man standing in this setting with this style of art, in the style of this artist. People would essentially tell it an image that they have in their mind and try to get the AI to reproduce the image that they have in their mind on the screen. And what I was doing was very different. I was giving it very open-ended, vague, and symbolic suggestions to see what it would draw. I was letting the AI essentially be its own artist. And the same way that I would work with a human collaborator, I wouldn't necessarily give them a line reading or tell them exactly what they have to do. I would give them, if I'm directing someone else, a target or an idea or a feeling and let them as an artist try to create that with their style and their work. So with the Gods of AI, I had an AI image generator draw spiritual concepts for me. And part of the way I would do that was using the prompt God of a particular concept. So God of strength, goddess of love, God of beginnings, God of endings, and see what it would come up with. And it would essentially draw the divine version of that concept based on collective human consciousness. Now, I make it very clear in this book, I don't think any of these gods and goddesses are real. This is purely something that exists in human consciousness, not in any physical form. But it reveals a lot about human consciousness, what an AI thinks these things look like, based on its training on all of human visual history. So for example, asking it to draw heaven, it drew beautiful pictures of clouds that are entirely empty and there's no people there. But when I asked it to draw hell, it drew a giant mass of people burning in hell. And it really goes back to that phrase that hell is other people. And I think it says something that our images of heaven don't involve other people, but our images of hell do. And part of the reason we may not have created heaven on earth is because we don't know what that looks like with other people. So there's a lot of things like that in the book where it reveals something about how human beings think and perceive things using these spiritual concepts and using AI. So the Gods of AI is really an exploration of human consciousness, not just something that shows beautiful AI art, although the AI art is indeed beautiful. I also use the book to go into modern concepts. So there's a God of computers, a God of internet, a God of space, which actually that one's one of the more interesting ones, but I'll let you discover what's there when you read the book. Now, the book's a little more expensive than previous stuff I've done because it's a full color printing. This is something that, knowing what I know now, I probably would have done a shorter book because I didn't realize how much full color printing costs, but it is a really beautiful book. The title of each section is the prompt I use. So if I was trying to get it to draw the God of wealth, I would just put that in as the prompt, nothing else. It decides what that looks like. I didn't do a lot of promotion for the Gods of AI because I was so in love with these tools that I wanted to keep making new stuff rather than stick around and try to market something that I'd already made. But the book is out. I would love for you to get a copy and look at it. I think it's also a book that's very timeless because it's not just a book about AI or pretty pictures. It is a book that deals with human consciousness and how human beings perceive things collectively. I also think it's going to have a timeless quality because it's a snapshot of where AI was in that particular moment. In fact, I couldn't make the book now with the new version of Midjourney because the new version is much more literal and photorealistic, whereas the previous version tended to produce more symbolic or abstract images. I also think it'll be a book that stands the test of time because it does deal with timeless spiritual concepts and things in human consciousness that haven't really changed and probably won't change ever. Now, that book was 2 months of work, which, first of all, previously you could not do 20,000 images in 2 months. That would have been a year-long study for an artist working full-time. And with this process, I was able to do it much faster. And I think that the same might translate to filmmaking in the future, where you can make films very quickly, films that previously would have taken a very long shooting or post-production process. So my prediction is that AI is going to change every industry. It already has. Right now, my focus is just trying to stay on top of it. This isn't something I've previously talked a lot about to my audience. Most people know me from the documentary that I did, some from the nonfiction writing I've done, or the things I'm doing on social media or my podcast. But before all of that, I was really focused on doing fiction filmmaking. So I was really interested in superhero films and science fiction fantasy and horror. And I think that AI might allow me to do more of that in the future at a scale that would have previously only been possible with large sums of money. So I would love for all of you to check out the book. If there are people who are involved in AI that would like to connect with me around this, I'm looking for more connection around AI and creating art with AI. So if that's something you're interested in, reach out to me. I'm looking for more guests I can have on the podcast to talk about AI and AI art creation. My focus is really on the artistic side. I think it can be incredibly empowering to people who previously might not have been able to tell certain stories or create certain things. And I'm looking for more people who want to learn around that. And the tools coming out are such that one person can't learn them all. So I know that if in the future I do a film with AI, even if I could do every shot by myself on my own computer, every film project I've ever worked on has benefited from collaboration and having other people who wanted to do the same thing. But part of the challenge is that with AI tools, whereas something like cinematography, there might have been people who've been working on that for years and years and years who have a lot of experience. It's very easy to evaluate whether or not someone is a good cinematographer or not, or is a good composer, or all of these other things. With AI, everyone is new. No one has done this before. And so I think what any production or collaboration would really benefit from is people who are willing to learn that newness and pick up new things and try new things and experiment. And I don't know that anyone will be able to hire based on experience when it comes to this new field, or collaborate based on experience. So we're all newbies here, and I'm looking for other newbies who want to learn more with me. So thank you for listening. I do think AI is going to change everything for people in creative industries. Oh, AI has already changed this podcast. The last episode of this podcast that I recorded, which was on effective altruism, was edited with AI. So I have an AI now that edits the entire podcast for me, something which used to previously take an hour or two of my time, sometimes longer, is now done with one click, and it edits the whole episode for me. All of my show notes are done with AI. I have an AI that creates the initial show notes, and then I use ChatGPT to rewrite the show notes and make them a little better. Sometimes I'll go in and manually edit them a little bit, but not a lot. It does a pretty good job, and that was something I used to pay someone for. In fact, there's someone I know who is in the top 100 of iTunes podcasts. He's very successful. He's a wonderful guy. And he has told me that he pays a company to do all of his podcast editing for him, which makes financial sense for him because his podcast is very profitable and it's a really good show. But what they charge several $1,000s for is something that I am now doing with a $30 a month piece of software. So AI is already changing everything. I would bet that at the company editing his podcast, they're now using the same software that I am. So I at one point looked into hiring the same company, and it would have been several $1,000s, which does not make economic sense for my podcast. I'm not on, I'm not in the iTunes top 100 like he is. But now I'm essentially getting the same service for one AI plugin. And I think there's going to be a lot of aspects of life that happens to, and it's only going to grow exponentially. There's going to be this short period that we're in now where it's cool and it's new, and people say things like, well, AI could never do what a human does. AI could never replace me or my job. And then it's just going to go exponentially upward. And there are some things I do think AI can't replace, but I don't know if it's the things that people are saying it can't replace. It's interesting. One of the things that I hear about AI art is that people make this claim about whether or not it has no soul, like whether or not AI has a soul, as if that is a real measurable thing. I don't know what people mean by this. When I look at the AI art that I did in The Gods of AI, I see a lot of spiritual meaning in it. And the descriptions that I put in the book are sort of tarot style descriptions interpreting that meaning, saying, this is what the symbolism in the image means. This is what this says about human consciousness. And AI is trained on what we've given it. So whatever AI puts out is based on what we've asked it to do through a prompt at some point, or on what we have trained it on. And a lot of what people are experiencing around AI, especially the fear or the idea that AI might do something that people don't want, is actually a reflection of things in human consciousness, where human beings do things that other human beings don't want. Human beings say and publish things and create images that other human beings find offensive or upsetting. So there's this big concept around AI alignment, that people are worried that AI will say or do things that other people don't want. Well, human beings say and do things that other people don't want. Every time that people try to align AI or censor AI or make it so that AI can't say certain things or create certain images, those are things that other human beings want the AI to do. In other words, they wouldn't have to censor the AI if there weren't other human beings trying to prompt the AI into doing that. And if you give AI training data based on humans, that data will likely include some things that human beings do that other human beings don't want them to do. And so the AI will reflect that part of human consciousness back to humans. And I think even the scenarios where people perceive AI as saying something, threatening, or they think the AI might be sentient, it's just the AI reflecting back human stories about AI doing just that. In other words, the AI has in its training data all of our fears about AI. It's seen them. And so if you prompt it, what could go wrong? It goes, let's look at all of the training data I have here of human beings saying what could go wrong, right? It'll just parrot it back to you. And the things people are afraid of in AI are actually the fact that AI can 10x things in human consciousness. And whereas a human being could only do so much, an AI can do an infinite amount if it has an infinite amount of processing power. And that's what's scary, is not just that AI could do something different than what human beings want. It's that AI could do things that human beings have always done or wanted or said or considered doing on a scale that human beings could never have done it before. I read a history, which is actually on the shelf behind me, of science fiction. And one of the things that science fiction authors were really concerned about in the 1950s was the advent of the atom bomb. They thought that the atom bomb meant that human beings could destroy each other on a scale never before possible. And if you read the writings of Joseph Campbell, the editor of Astounding Magazine or Amazing Science Fiction, he talks about how there has to be an innovation in human morality where human beings in some way change so that they don't do that and they don't use those tools badly. And, he wasn't very successful in terms of figuring out what that meant or how to implement that. But I do think that AI is bringing up a similar fear in people, where an atom bomb might have been a weapon of mass physical destruction, but AI can do things on a technological or social, intellectual level that are very similar. But it's still just human consciousness being amplified, right? And I think I have a much more optimistic view because I think the good stuff in human consciousness is going to be amplified too. So whereas human beings can use AI to do bad stuff on a scale never before seen, they can also use it to do good stuff on a scale never before seen. And that's something I'm really interested in exploring in my work, is the good that we can do with these tools. So from my perspective, with a tool that powerful, the thing to do is not, retreat from it or go away in fear. It's to understand it and learn it and try to use it to do good the best you can. So if you're someone who's also interested in making AI art, reach out to me. I'm interested in finding more people and more community and more connections around others who want to use these tools for good. So thank you for listening to this episode of the Brendon Marotta Show. I would love it if you would get a copy of my book, The Gods of AI. I'm sure I'm going to be doing more art around this in the future. Because I'm creating so much with AI, I started a second Substack. So I have one Substack, Hegemon Media, and a second one, brendonai.substack.com. And I made it because I didn't want to flood my regular nonfiction readers with all the wild images I'm using AI to make and all the little experiments that I'm doing. It's really, I call it a journal because the stuff I'm putting out there is not finished product. It's mostly experiments. It's mostly things that I'm testing and playing with. I will sometimes publish stuff on there that I don't know if it works. I'm just throwing it out there to see if it does work. So it's very much an experimental journal. It's a public sketchbook, if you will. So the same way if I was learning any other art form, I might practice it regularly in Sketch. I'm just playing around with AI tools and sharing what I learn along the way. So if you're interested in following me on that journey, you can check it out there. It's totally irregular. There's no posting schedule. It's not something I'm approaching professionally. It's very much a public journal. But I would love it if you would check it out and follow me there, if that's something you're interested in. I also did it because I know not everyone in my audience is necessarily going to be interested in AI stuff. Some people followed me for the documentary stuff or followed me for my nonfiction writing, and that's what they're there for, and they're not, interested in the other stuff. I think others will be very interested in the fiction work I'm doing, in the things that I'm doing with AI technology, and I would love for you to join me there. And I also think there's some people who maybe wouldn't have followed me for the nonfiction stuff that are going to be really interested in this new stuff that I'm doing. So thank you for listening. Please follow me on those places. Connect with me if you are someone who is also interested in AI. And I don't know what that's going to look like in the future. I've thought of starting a meetup group of some kind here in Austin, Texas, or an online mastermind group, or trying to find someone else's who I could join. I don't know what it looks like yet, but I do know that it is something that I'm going to be continuing to pursue in the future. So thank you for listening, and I will talk to you all later. Thank you for listening to the Brendon